Let me paint you a picture. It is Sunday night. The house is quiet. Your phone is face down on the nightstand. And instead of sleeping, you are running the same loop in your head that you have been running for months, maybe years. Bills, balance, what is due, what you owe, what is not going to be enough this month, no matter how creatively you rearrange the numbers. And the thing is, you are not a careless person. You are not someone who throws money around carelessly. You show up. You work hard. You try. You make the responsible choices. You skip the things you want so you can cover the things you need. But no matter what you do, there is always this gap between where you are and where you feel like you should be by now, between what you are earning and what life actually costs, between the version of your financial life you have been imagining and the one you are actually living every single day.
Let me paint you a picture. It is Sunday night, the house is quiet, your phone is face down on the nightstand, and instead of sleeping, you are running the same loop in your head that you have been running for months, maybe years. Bills, balance, what is due, what you owe, what is not going to be enough this month, no matter how creatively you rearrange the numbers. And the thing is, you are not a careless person. You are not someone who throws money around carelessly. You show up, you work hard, you try, you make the responsible choices. You skip the things you want so you can cover the things you need. But no matter what you do, there is always this gap between where you are and where you feel like you should be by now, between what you are earning and what life actually costs, between the version of your financial life you have been imagining and the one you are actually living every single day. You have watched people around you, some of them with the same starting point, the same background, the same zip code, the same early advantages and disadvantages, somehow pull ahead, buy the house, build the business, send the kids to the school they wanted, take the trip without calculating whether the credit card can absorb it, move through the world with a financial ease that you have been chasing for so long that it is starting to feel less like a goal and more like someone else's story. And somewhere, in a quiet, honest moment, not out loud, not in a way you would admit to most people, you have probably asked it, the question underneath all the other questions. Here is what I want to tell you, and I'm asking you to stay with me on this because it lands differently once it really settles. The answer is not a strategy. It is not a smarter budget or a hotter investment or a productivity system or a more optimized morning routine. The people who have genuinely transformed their financial lives not just temporarily earned more, but fundamentally and durably changed their relationship with wealth, changed something that you cannot see from the outside. They changed what was happening in the deepest layer of their own thinking. They rewired, deliberately and systematically, the subconscious beliefs that had been quietly running their financial life on autopilot. They stopped fighting the mirror. They changed what was standing in front of it. Dr. Joseph Murphy spent his entire career studying and documenting this shift. He was a theologian, a philosopher, a New Thought pioneer who lectured across 5 continents, filled auditoriums from Los Angeles to London to Johannesburg, and wrote more than 30 books over the course of his life. He was not selling shortcuts. He was not offering a formula for the impatient. He was someone who had watched over decades and through thousands of documented real cases, ordinary people with ordinary starting points completely transform their financial realities. Not by working harder, not by getting lucky, not by finding the right connection or the right moment, by working on something far more fundamental than any of those things. His book, Your Infinite Power to Be Rich, is the fullest expression of a lifetime of that work. Today, we go through all of it. Every chapter, every principle, every story, completely and without shortcuts. By the time we finish, you will understand with real clarity why your financial life looks the way it does right now, and you will have the specific, repeatable tools to change it, starting tonight, not someday. There is a reason you have stayed this far, a reason you clicked on a video about a book called Your Infinite Power to Be Rich rather than a video about budgeting or cutting expenses or finding a side hustle. Some part of you already suspects that the answer is not more discipline or more sacrifice or more grinding. Some part of you is looking for something different, something that goes deeper, something that actually addresses the root rather than trimming the surface. Dr. Murphy's entire career was a response to that suspicion. He believed, and documented case by documented case, that the suspicion is correct. The answer is different from what we have been taught. It is deeper, it does address the root, and it is available to you fully and immediately, starting with the next chapter. Let us go find it.
Here is what I am promising you for the next hour and a half. By the end of this video, you will understand precisely why your financial life looks the way it does right now. And the explanation will not involve the economy, your timing, or your luck, though all of those things are real and all of them matter. It will involve the precise internal mechanism inside your own mind that is either building wealth or quietly blocking it every single day, whether you are aware of it or not. And you will walk away with specific, actionable, immediately usable practices that you can begin tonight, not next week, not when circumstances improve, tonight. I want to tell you who this is for. This is for the 32-year-old who is doing everything right on paper and still feels perpetually behind. For the person who has read every productivity book, built every budget spreadsheet, written their goals in every format recommended by every system, and still wakes up with that low, persistent hum of financial anxiety that nothing fully quiets. For anyone who has ever, in a moment of genuine honesty, wondered whether a completely different kind of financial life is actually available to them, not to other people they admire, not to people who got better breaks, to them, specifically, from where they currently stand. The answer Murphy spent his life delivering is yes. It is available. It has always been available. And the path to it begins not in the external world, but in the deepest layer of your own mind. Murphy opens chapter 1 with the most important sentence in the book, a sentence so direct and unqualified that it might make you pause before you keep reading. He says, "You were born rich." Not rich because your family had money, not rich because circumstances favored you, rich because your birthright as a human being includes direct, unconditional access to an infinite supply. The universe you were born into is not a place of fundamental scarcity. It is, in its deepest nature, overflowing. And embedded inside you, right now, at this exact moment, regardless of what your bank balance says, is a subconscious mind that is directly connected to what Murphy calls infinite intelligence, the same creative power that turns a seed buried in dark soil into something alive and reaching toward light. Let us go into chapter 1. Imagine standing in front of a locked vault. You've been told, somehow you simply know, that on the other side of that door is everything you have ever wanted. Security, freedom, the ability to look at a price tag without the involuntary flinch. You can feel the pull of it through the cold metal. But you have been standing here for years, trying every combination you know, and you keep getting the same result. The door does not open. That, says Dr. Murphy, is how most people relate to wealth. Not because the vault is empty, because they were given the wrong key. And worse, nobody ever told them there was another way in. Here is the core concept of chapter 1, and I want you to hold it carefully because everything else in this book rests on it. Your subconscious mind is not a passive archive of old memories and ingrained habits. It is a creative, generative force. It is directly connected to what Murphy calls infinite intelligence, the same intelligence that runs your heartbeat without a conscious instruction, that heals a cut on your hand while you sleep, that orchestrates systems of staggering biological complexity in your body every single moment of every day without your awareness or involvement. That intelligence is not just keeping your body functional, it is available, fully, completely unconditionally available for your financial life. Murphy calls the access point the treasure house of infinity.
And he says that every human being alive has a direct line to it. Let me tell you about David. David was a business owner who came to Murphy carrying $50,000 in debt, and something heavier than the numbers. A quiet, corrosive conviction that he was, at some fundamental level, the kind of person who simply could not hold on to money. He had earned more income in earlier years. The debt had grown anyway. He was not reckless. He was not extravagant. He just watched money drain out of his life with a regularity he could not explain, and a helplessness he had stopped trying to fight. Murphy did not offer him a debt repayment plan or a spending audit. He gave him 3 daily practices and asked him to follow them faithfully for 6 months. The first was this. Every morning and every evening, David was to sit in complete stillness for 10 minutes. Not planning, not reviewing his situation, not calculating what he owed or what he needed. Stillness. And in that stillness, he was to speak to his subconscious with genuine, body-level feeling, not reciting words mechanically like a shopping list, but holding a felt statement of what he was choosing to make real. I am wealthy. Wealth flows to me naturally and easily. The intelligence within me knows exactly how to create abundance in my life. Murphy explains that the subconscious mind cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined and emotionally felt reality and an actual one. When you feel something as true at the level where the subconscious lives, not just think it, feel it, it begins to become true. That is not poetry. That is the precise mechanism. The second practice, every time a fear thought about money arose during the day, and they would arise frequently because old programming does not step aside politely when you begin to challenge it, David was to redirect immediately. Not suppress, not analyze, not argue. Simply redirect with a brief, firm internal statement. God is my infinite supply. There is always more than enough. A deliberate pivot from the frequency of scarcity to the frequency of abundance, made consistently every single time. The third, the 5 minutes just before sleep. Murphy is precise and deliberate about this timing, and it matters. The moments just before you drift off are when the critical, analytical conscious mind relaxes completely and the gateway to the subconscious opens wide. In those 5 minutes, David was to spend every night living inside the feeling of the end result, not thinking about how he would clear the debt, not visualizing the steps, but feeling what it felt like to already be free. The physical lightness in his chest, the quiet, settled confidence of a person who looks at his finances and sees solid ground where there was once quicksand. He was to fall asleep inside that feeling, using those receptive moments to plant the new program as deeply as possible. Murphy makes a point in this chapter that cuts against something many of us have absorbed without realizing it. He says, poverty is not a virtue. He was a minister, a genuinely devout man, and he was completely unambiguous. There is nothing spiritually elevated about financial struggle, nothing noble about chronic insufficiency. Abundance is the nature of the universe. Look at the oceans, the forests, the atmosphere, the sunlight that delivers more energy to this planet in a single hour than humanity uses in a year. Scarcity is not what the universe is. Scarcity is what happens in a mind that has learned to expect it. And a mind that has learned something can, with sustained intention and practice, unlearn it. Murphy closes chapter 1 with a challenge: 21 days. For 21 consecutive days, refuse every poverty thought. Not suppress, redirect. Every I cannot afford this, every money is always hard, every quiet internal conviction that wealth belongs to other people. Replace each one immediately and without negotiation with there is more than enough and I am in the flow of infinite supply. Most people will not complete 21 days, not because it is physically demanding, because it requires something genuinely uncommon, the willingness to act as though something is true before you have external evidence for it. That willingness, Murphy says, is not naivety. It is the single prerequisite for every financial transformation he ever witnessed. It is where the door begins to open. In Chapter 2, he shows us something that will feel almost startlingly simple once you hear it. The riches you have been searching for are not far away. They are not hidden. They are, quite literally, all around you right now. Take a slow breath right now. A real one, all the way down. Were you worried, as that air came in, that there might not be enough? Of course not. You did not compete for it. You did not strategize about securing your share before someone else took it. You just breathed. And there it was. You have never lost a single night of sleep worrying that the air might run out. Because you know, not as a belief you consciously chose, not as a philosophy you adopted, but at a level so deep and so automatic that it simply feels like reality. That air is abundant. Everywhere, for everyone. Inexhaustible. The idea of running out of air is not even a real fear. It is too obviously impossible to take seriously. What if you related to money that way? Not by pretending your bank balance is different from what it is, not by denying that bills exist or that financial pressure is real, but by genuinely shifting the fundamental story your subconscious runs about whether abundance is available to someone like you. Whether wealth flows freely in the world and you belong in that current, or whether it is something that exists for other people in other categories of life, and you are perpetually on the outside looking through the glass at it. Robert was in his late 30s when he came to Murphy. Hardworking, honest, dependable. He showed up on time, followed through on commitments, and played by every rule he had been taught. He was also, though he never would have used this word to describe himself, quietly consumed by financial resentment. Not the dramatic kind that announces itself. The quiet, chronic, low-grade kind that just lives in the background of ordinary life like a radio left on in another room. Every time he saw someone driving a car he could not afford, something tightened in his chest. Every time a colleague received a promotion or a bonus, he felt that familiar slow burn. Every bill he paid had a quality of being robbed rather than honoring an obligation. Every grocery run was a grim arithmetic exercise rather than a routine act of taking care of his household. He came to Murphy saying exactly what so many people say when they arrive at that kind of impasse. I do everything right. I work hard. I'm a decent person. Why is this not working? Murphy's response was not what Robert expected. He said, Robert, every single time you feel resentment toward another person's wealth or success, you send your subconscious one clear, unambiguous message. Wealth belongs to them, not to me. I am outside the circle of abundance. And your subconscious, which does not argue with you, does not offer reassurance, does not stop to ask whether you are sure about this, accepts that message completely and organizes your entire financial life around it. Think about the precision of that for a moment. Every flash of resentment is an instruction. Every moment of bitterness about someone else's success is a directive sent to the most powerful creative force in your life. And the subconscious executes those instructions with complete loyalty, no matter what they cost you. It steers you away from wealth-creating decisions at the exact moments that require courage. It fills you with hesitation before the right risks and overconfidence before the wrong ones. It arranges your life with remarkable consistency around the story it has been given. I am on the outside, and that is where I belong. Murphy gave Robert a practice so simple it almost sounds like nothing. Every time Robert encountered someone with something genuinely good in their life, a thriving business, a comfortable home, a promotion, a successful launch, anything his old self would have reacted to with that tightening. Instead of contracting, he was to say internally, with real intention and real meaning, I bless your prosperity. There is more than enough for everyone. I am genuinely happy for what you have built. Not performance, not forced positivity through gritted teeth. A deliberate, repeated, daily act of consciously reprogramming the story running in his deeper mind. Because when you genuinely bless the wealth you see around you, you send your subconscious a completely different message. Abundance is real and available. Wealth flows freely in this world. I belong in that flow. And the subconscious, faithful always, begins organizing your life around that story instead. Murphy also introduces in this chapter what he calls the magic formula for paying bills. I want to stay with this one because it is so counterintuitive that the first time you hear it, part of you will immediately want to dismiss it as naive. I am asking you not to dismiss it before you understand what it actually does. When a bill arrives and you feel that familiar tightening, the slight catch in the breath, the stomach dropping a little, the mental calculation starting before you have even finished reading the amount, Murphy says to do something completely unexpected. Instead of paying it with the silent narrative of, "There goes more of my money," pay it with a genuine felt sense of gratitude and expectation. Say to yourself as you complete the payment, "I give thanks for the value I have received. My supply is infinite and replenishes itself constantly. As this money flows out, it returns to me multiplied." Here is the actual mechanism that makes this worth doing. When you pay with resentment and dread, you program your subconscious to experience money as something that perpetually drains, something insufficient by nature, something that leaves and does not come back. When you pay with genuine gratitude and expectant trust, you program your subconscious to experience money as dynamic, as part of a cycle that is fundamentally generous, flowing out and flowing back, out and back, like breathing. Over time, one of these programs creates a person who perpetually feels financially behind, regardless of what they actually earn. The other creates a person who lives in a felt sense of abundance and makes genuinely different decisions because of it. Murphy closes Chapter 2 with a daily practice he calls the Abundance Walk. Once a day, spend a few minutes simply noticing what is already abundant in your world right now. Not the money you do not have, what you do have. The food in your kitchen, the sky above you, the technology you are listening to this on right now, the sheer volume of music, knowledge, conversation, and beauty available to you today for free that no monarch in any previous century could have dreamed of accessing. Train your attention on abundance every day, and you train your subconscious on abundance. And your subconscious, as reliable as gravity, begins to arrange your life around the new story you have given it. In Chapter 3, Murphy turns to a form of wealth that most people walk past every day without recognizing, one that requires no capital, no credentials, and no outside permission, one you already carry right now. I want to tell you about a woman who changed her financial life without a single dollar of investment capital, without a bank loan, and without a single person handing her an opportunity she did not create herself. Her name was Helen. Late 30s, working 2 part-time jobs simultaneously, raising a child on her own with the particular brand of exhaustion that comes from carrying everything alone, and operating under a quiet, persistent belief that the window for her financial success had already closed while she was not paying attention. She had missed the train. What remained was managing the gap between where she was and where she once imagined she might end up. She had a skill, a genuinely extraordinary one as it turned out. She could walk into any chaotic business environment, overflowing inboxes, tangled workflows, communication breakdowns, processes that had grown organically into complicated knots, and within a matter of days create systems so clean and efficient that the business ran measurably, visibly better. Former colleagues called her constantly for help with exactly this problem. She always said yes. She never charged. It had simply never occurred to her to charge. It felt like just a thing she could do, a personality quirk, not a marketable product, certainly not something anyone would pay real money for. Murphy asked her one question. What do you know how to do that other people find genuinely difficult? She described her organizing ability, tentatively, a little apologetically, as though she were admitting to something minor that barely counted. Murphy said, "That is wealth. You are giving your wealth away for free because you do not yet believe it is valuable. The moment you fully believe in the value of what lives inside your own mind, other people will believe it too, not because you persuaded them, because your conviction itself changes how the offering is perceived." Helen went home that evening and wrote down in specific detail every professional skill she genuinely carried. She created a clear, concrete service offering. She set a real rate that reflected real value. She reached out directly to 3 small business owners she knew personally. All three said yes within 2 weeks, not after extended persuasion, after a straightforward conversation in which Helen, for the first time, spoke about what she did with the confidence of someone who knew it was worth paying for. Chapter 3 is built around this observation. Knowledge is not just power. Knowledge is wealth in one of its most direct and accessible forms. And Murphy is not talking only about academic credentials or technical training. He is talking about something broader and more immediately available. The knowledge of what you are genuinely capable of. The knowledge of what is uniquely yours to offer. And the knowledge that within you is an intelligence that can generate ideas, solutions, and creative pathways that no external education could ever fully provide. He calls the practice of accessing this intelligence going within. And it is as specific and learnable as any professional skill. He tells the story of a man who had failed at 3 consecutive businesses, 3 different ventures, 3 different explanations for what went wrong each time. By the time he arrived at Murphy's door, he had quietly, thoroughly accepted failure as his pattern, the thing that simply happened to him, reliably, regardless of how hard he tried. Murphy did not argue with the history. He asked one question. Do you ever sit in real stillness and ask your subconscious for guidance? Not frantically, not from a place of desperation, but with a clean, open, genuine question. What am I missing right now? What is the very next right step? And then wait, patiently, openly, without forcing, for whatever comes. The man admitted he had never tried anything like that. Murphy asked him to spend 2 weeks beginning each morning with exactly this: 10 minutes of silence, a specific question, and then a quality of open, curious attention throughout the rest of the day, genuinely ready to notice what arose. On day 9, an insight arrived with a clarity that surprised him, not a vague feeling, a specific, actionable understanding of a gap in his local market that he had been standing directly beside for years without seeing. He followed it. His 4th business became his first real success. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Murphy understood through direct observation decades earlier. The brain continues processing problems actively during periods when the conscious mind is not focused on them. The subconscious runs continuous computations, taking in information from the environment, comparing it against patterns, finding connections the busy conscious mind is too distracted to notice. When you give it a clear, emotionally engaged question and then create genuine space, real quiet, real stillness, real absence of noise and demand, it delivers an answer. It does this with a consistency that is remarkable once you begin paying deliberate attention to it. He also introduces the idea of vision wealth, the capacity to perceive possibilities before they are visible to anyone else. Not a rare gift given to exceptional people, a faculty every human being carries, and one that grows measurably stronger the more consistently you practice the discipline of going within. Every company that changed an industry was, at its beginning, only a vision held in one person's mind, kept alive through uncertainty, acted on before there was proof it would work. That capacity is not reserved for the exceptionally talented. It is developed by anyone willing to practice the stillness in which it can be heard. Murphy closes Chapter 3 with a line that rewards returning to. The doors of opportunity open to those who knock on them from the inside. Not by attacking the external world with frantic effort, by developing the inner clarity and creative intelligence to recognize the door when it appears and to walk through it with the confidence of someone who knows they belong on the other side. You carry more genuine, valuable, monetizable knowledge inside you right now than you are currently giving yourself credit for. The work is not to acquire more. It is to learn to believe in what you already carry. In Chapter 4, Murphy introduces the most powerful partnership available to any human being. It requires no capital, no credentials, and no connections. It requires one thing only. Before we go into this chapter, I want to name something directly and without hedging. Murphy was a minister and a theologian. He spoke openly and without apology about God throughout his life and throughout this book. In Chapter 4, that language is front and center, and I am not going to sanitize it or replace it with something more palatable to a secular audience. But I am going to ask you, wherever you stand on religion or spirituality, whatever your relationship is to the word God, to stay with me here, because what Murphy is actually pointing to in this chapter goes deeper than any particular religious tradition or doctrinal framework. He is describing the relationship between your individual human mind and the larger organizing intelligence that runs through the universe itself. Call it what genuinely resonates with you. God, the universe, infinite intelligence, source, higher mind, the deeper self. Murphy himself used these terms interchangeably, and he was always clear that the label mattered far less than the concept beneath it. The concept is this: you were not designed to navigate your entire life relying solely on the thin surface layer of your conscious analytical mind. You were built structurally as a human being to operate in conscious intentional partnership with something vastly larger than your individual thinking. He tells the story of a business owner whose situation had deteriorated to what looked, from the outside and the inside, like the edge of bankruptcy. His partners were in open panic. His accountant was advising him to begin preparing for the worst-case scenario. Every option visible from his current vantage point was a bad one. The walls were closing in from every direction. That evening, instead of staying at his desk grinding through the same narrowing options for the 100th time, the man went home. He sat in his chair, he took a breath, and he prayed. Not desperately, not bargaining or pleading, not the frantic white-knuckled prayer that is really just panic wearing spiritual clothing. He prayed with what Murphy calls the prayer of acknowledgement. I do not know the next step, but there is an intelligence within me that does. I release this problem to that intelligence. I trust that the right answer is already forming. Then he went to bed. The next morning, he woke with a clarity so specific it startled him. A name, a particular person to contact, a framing for a conversation that his exhausted, panicked conscious mind had been completely unable to generate through weeks of grinding analytical effort. He made one phone call. 2 weeks later, the crisis had not simply been resolved, the resolution had opened a new arrangement that put him in a stronger position than he had been in before the difficulty began. Murphy uses this story to illustrate the partnership principle with precision. Your conscious mind is the initiator. It sets the intention, makes the decision, picks up the phone, shows up, does the work. But the intelligence operating through your subconscious has access to information, patterns, connections, and solutions that your surface-level thinking simply cannot reach. Not because you are not intelligent enough, because the conscious mind operates with a tiny fraction of the total computational capacity available to you as a human being. When you try to force every outcome through willpower and control alone, when you grip every decision, white-knuckle every uncertainty, refuse to release any outcome you cannot yet see, you cut yourself off from the most capable part of your own intelligence. Murphy introduces in this chapter the concept of the genius within. He is specific. Every person alive carries it. Not a genius at particular technical skills necessarily, a genius at being fully alive, at perceiving and creating and connecting and building in ways that are uniquely their own. But this genius does not appear under pressure. It does not emerge when you are frantically spinning or trying to control every variable or white-knuckling your way through difficulty. It emerges in stillness. It speaks in the quiet moments. It arrives when you are genuinely relaxed, open, and trusting enough to receive what it offers. He tells of a woman who had spent 3 years trying to bring a business idea to life. Every path hit a wall. Funding fell through twice. A key partnership dissolved without warning. Timing always seemed slightly off in ways she could never fully account for. She came to Murphy exhausted and prepared to accept that perhaps this particular thing was simply not for her. Murphy asked her one question: have you been forcing this, or have you been partnering? He gave her one instruction for 1 week. Every morning, before she opened her laptop or checked her phone or made a plan for the day, she would sit in stillness for 15 minutes. Not planning, not strategizing, not rehearsing conversations or reviewing her options. Simply asking her inner genius for the single next right step, not the whole roadmap, just the next step. And then moving through her day with a quality of genuinely open, receptive attention. By the 5th day, she had a completely new angle on her offering, a reframing that made the previous obstacles simply irrelevant, that she could not have arrived at through analytical effort alone despite years of trying. That reframing became the foundation of what eventually succeeded. Murphy closes Chapter 4 with a statement I think is one of the most clarifying in the entire book. You cannot be poor when you are consciously partnered with an infinite supply. Poverty in every form is, at its root, a felt sense of separation from that supply. The supply never went anywhere. The source never ran dry. The disconnection was always in our own perception, and it is therefore always, entirely, within our own power to heal. Chapter 5 is where Murphy stops being philosophical and puts something specific in your hands. A technology. A precise, repeatable practice for using prayer not as ritual, but as an exact instrument for generating real, tangible, material financial results. Sarah was not a religious person. She would have described herself as practical, skeptical, and results-oriented. She needed evidence before she believed something, and she had a well-developed wariness of anything that sounded like wishful thinking dressed in spiritual language. She was also, at the time she first encountered Murphy's work, 3 months behind on rent, raising 2 children alone, doing a job that paid less than she needed, and carrying the specific exhaustion that accumulates when you have been trying hard for a long time without getting ahead. A friend, someone Sarah privately described as annoyingly, inexplicably calm and together in a way that seemed to defy the circumstances of her actual life, handed her Murphy's book and said simply, "Try what he says. 30 days. You have absolutely nothing to lose." Sarah tried it. She expected nothing from it. She did it anyway because she was tired of having nothing try. On day 31, she received a phone call from someone she had spoken to exactly once, briefly, 6 weeks earlier. A 5-minute conversation at a coffee shop that she had genuinely half forgotten. He had an opening at his company. He had remembered her from that single exchange. He had tracked her down through a mutual contact specifically to offer her the role. The position was a meaningful step up from where she was, and it reshaped her financial life over the following 3 years. Chapter 5 is built around the single most important practical distinction Murphy makes in the entire book. He draws a precise, clear line between 2 fundamentally different kinds of prayer. And the difference between them is not theological, it is psychological, mechanistic, and entirely practical. Supplicating prayer, the default most of us reach for in genuine crisis, sounds like this. Please, I need this. Please help me. Please make something change. Please let this work out. It comes entirely from a place of felt insufficiency, from the experience of being without, being desperate, being fundamentally dependent on something outside yourself to rescue you from your current condition. Here's the problem Murphy identifies with surgical precision. What message does supplicating prayer actually send to your subconscious? It sends this: I am without. I am insufficient. My situation is desperate. The subconscious does not judge this message, does not argue with it, does not offer you reassurance or perspective. It receives the message as true and acts on it with complete loyalty, keeping you oriented toward lack, toward crisis, toward the emotional and psychological reality of insufficiency that your prayer itself communicated. Scientific prayer works on an entirely different principle. You do not approach as a beggar. You approach as someone who knows their inheritance and has decided to claim it. You state a specific desired outcome, not the steps to get there, not the conditions that must first be met, just the destination. And you hold that destination in your mind and your body as a felt reality, not as a wish, as something already accomplished in the deeper world, already in motion, already moving toward material expression in your life. Murphy's specific practice is what he calls the gold mine within. Here's how he teaches it, exactly. Sit comfortably, close your eyes. Take several slow, complete breaths until your body genuinely settles. Picture yourself surrounded by warm, expansive, peaceful light, and then, with authentic feeling rather than mechanically recited words, "The infinite intelligence within me is my constant guide. It reveals to me the perfect opportunity at the perfect time. It draws to me every person, circumstance, and resource that serves my highest prosperity. I give thanks that this is already accomplished and already moving toward me now." Sarah did not believe any of this would work. She did it faithfully anyway, every day, for 30 days, bringing as much genuine feeling to it as she could manage. Around day 12, before any external circumstance had changed, before there was any visible evidence that anything was different, something shifted internally. She stopped feeling the constant low hum of desperation. She started experiencing what she later described as a strange certainty. Not arrogant certainty, quiet certainty. A sense, below conscious reasoning, that something was already in motion. Murphy would say that quiet inner certainty was her subconscious communicating clearly. "I have received the new programming, and I am working with it." The outer evidence would come later, as it always does. The inner shift comes first. He makes a critical point here that the personal development world frequently blurs past. Scientific prayer is not a substitute for action. It is a preparation for action. It orients your whole being, conscious and subconscious, mind and body, toward the right outcome, so that when you act from clarity rather than panic, from guidance rather than desperation, from the quiet confidence of someone who is moving in the right direction rather than the frantic energy of someone who has no idea which way to run. Murphy gives an image here that I return to often. You are a radio. Your conscious mind is the dial. Your subconscious is the receiver. The station you are trying to tune into, abundance, guidance, creative intelligence, inspired action, is always broadcasting, without interruption. It never goes off the air. The only variable is where your dial is set. Fear, worry, resentment, and chronic doubt produce static. Faith, gratitude, expectant trust, and genuine openness produce signal, clear, strong, and actionable. Scientific prayer, practiced daily and with genuine intention, is how you move the dial. Chapter 6 takes us to one of the most famous and most misunderstood ideas in modern personal development, and what Murphy says about it is probably the most precise and useful explanation you will encounter. There is one more thing Murphy adds to Chapter 5 that I do not want to leave out, because it completes the picture. He says, the subconscious mind does not need you to believe with certainty. It needs you to be willing. Willingness is the door. Certainty comes later as the evidence accumulates and the inner experience of alignment becomes familiar enough to trust. Sarah was not certain. She was willing. That was enough. It is always enough to begin. Let us be honest about something first. The law of attraction has a credibility problem. For a lot of thoughtful, intelligent people, the kind of people who invest time in videos like this one, the moment those words appear, there is an internal eye roll. And that response is completely understandable, because the version of the law of attraction that has been mass-marketed in best-selling books, viral content, and weekend seminars is, at its most stripped down, this. Think about what you want, visualize it hard enough, put it on a vision board, say it into the mirror, and it will appear. Believe and receive. The universe is a vending machine and your thoughts are the coins. People try that. Sincerely, for weeks, sometimes months. Nothing changes. They walk away having confirmed what some part of them quietly suspected. This is wishful thinking dressed up in the language of cosmic law, inspirational but fundamentally empty. Murphy would say, the concept is real. The popular explanation is simply incomplete. And an incomplete explanation of a genuine principle is, in practice, the same as a wrong one. Because you follow the instructions and they do not lead where they were supposed to lead. and you conclude the destination does not exist. Here is the key distinction, and it deserves to be held clearly. There is what you consciously think you believe about money and prosperity, and there is what your subconscious actually, habitually, and emotionally believes. The deep programming that is running your real decisions, your real responses, your real relationship to opportunity and risk, every moment of every day. When those two things are different, which they almost always are, because most of our deepest financial beliefs were installed before we had any say in the matter, the subconscious wins, every time, without negotiation, without exception, without regard for how sincerely you want the other thing. You can spend 20 intentional minutes each morning saying, "I am wealthy," while spending the remaining 23 hours and 40 minutes operating from a bone-deep, unexamined, emotionally ingrained conviction that wealth belongs to a different category of person than you are. And when those two forces meet, the 20 minutes does not and cannot override the deep programming. The subconscious wins, always. Murphy tells the story of Thomas, a salesman who had practiced daily affirmations faithfully and without fail for 3 months. 0 visible results. He arrived at Murphy's door dismissive, frustrated, and thoroughly convinced the whole concept was a fraud. He said, "I said the words every single day. Nothing changed. There is nothing to this." Murphy asked one question. "When you say the words, what do you feel?" Thomas considered it honestly and said, "Stupid, like I am actively lying to myself, like some part of me is watching what I am doing and laughing." Murphy said, "There is your answer. You are using the language of abundance while experiencing, at the felt level, the reality of falsehood. And your subconscious does not process language, it processes emotion. It processes the felt sense of what is real. When you say, 'I am wealthy,' while experiencing the feeling of fraud, the message your subconscious actually receives is not, 'I am wealthy,' it is, 'This is not true.' And the subconscious, faithful, precise, entirely loyal to what it was actually given, acts on what it received." Murphy also addresses something in this chapter that most law of attraction content skips entirely: the role of your social environment. He describes a woman who had been living for years inside a social world almost entirely organized around financial grievance. Every gathering was, in some form, a conference on how hard things were, how the system was rigged, how nothing ever changed for people like them, how the deck was permanently stacked against them. She loved these people genuinely. She was not looking for a reason to leave them. But she had not recognized that every conversation was reinforcing her own deepest subconscious programming around money with powerful, consistent emotional force. As her inner work progressed, she began deliberately spending time with people who were building things, not abandoning her original community, expanding her orbit to include people whose conversations centered on what was possible rather than what was unfair, on what was being created rather than what was being endured. Her thinking changed, her opportunities changed, her trajectory changed. Murphy's point is not that you need wealthier friends. It is that your environment, the conversations you participate in, the stories that get repeated around you, the emotional frequencies you inhabit daily, is either actively supporting your inner programming or actively working against it. Consciousness is genuinely contagious. Choose your environments with as much deliberate intention as you bring to your morning practice. He closes chapter 6 with a statement worth carrying. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. Not what you consciously wish for, what your subconscious genuinely believes about you and the world. Become the person whose natural emotional frequency is confidence, gratitude, generosity, and expectant trust, and wealth will follow. Not as a reward, as a consequence, as natural and reliable as gravity. Chapter 7 gives us the most immediately available daily practice in the entire book, one that begins working from exactly where you are, tonight, with exactly what you already have. I want to start with a question that might feel uncomfortable. I'm asking it anyway because it matters. When did you last feel genuine, physical, body-level gratitude for the money you currently have? Not the money you want, not the balance you are working toward, the actual number in your account right now, today, in whatever amount it happens to be. For most people, the honest answer is either not recently or not in the way Murphy means. And this is not a judgment. It is an observation of the default relationship most of us have developed with our finances inside a culture that is structured, at every level, around more. We're trained, from our earliest exposure to advertising and social comparison, to orient our attention toward the gap, toward what we do not yet have, toward the distance between our current situation and the one that would finally let us relax. The result is a daily practice of insufficiency that we run entirely unconsciously. Count what is there, find it lacking, feel anxious. Compare it to what we owe and feel tighter. Compare it to what others appear to have and feel worse. Treat our current financial reality as nothing but a problem to escape, never as a foundation to build from, never as something worth relating to with anything approaching warmth. We are programming ourselves for perpetual financial inadequacy, not because the money never arrives, but because the program is not designed to arrive at enough. It is designed to keep pointing at what is missing regardless of what is present. And the subconscious, faithful as ever, organizes our decisions and perceptions around that story. George earned a modest income, not in dramatic struggle, but not in genuine freedom either. Living in that particular financial plateau, not desperate enough for force urgent change, not free enough to genuinely relax and enjoy what he had. That is, in some ways, the most quietly demoralizing place to be. He came to Murphy not in crisis, but carrying a kind of settled weariness, a background conviction that his financial life was simply never going to look meaningfully different. Murphy gave him one practice, only one, and asked him to do it every single morning without exception. Before coffee, before his phone, before any thought about the day ahead, George would open his banking app and look at his balance, whatever the number was, and he would say with genuine, located, body-level feeling, "I bless this money. I am grateful for every single cent of it. This is the foundation of my growing abundance, and my abundance grows consistently and naturally every day." Then, 2 minutes of quiet visualization. Not frantic wishing, but the settled, certain expectation of someone watching something they have planted begin to move toward the light. Then he would go about his day. No dramatic intervention, a practice, a simple, deliberate, daily choice to relate to what he had as genuinely good, as a seed of something growing, as a foundation worth building on, rather than as evidence of how far he still had to go. 2 years later, George had 3 times the savings he had ever accumulated at any point in his life. He had received a promotion. A side income he had started modestly had become something real and self-sustaining. Murphy asked him what had changed. George's answer is worth sitting with. "I stopped fighting my own financial life. I stopped looking at what I had with resentment and started looking at it with something that felt like affection. And once I did that, something changed in how I made decisions. I stopped spending from anxiety and started building from intention. I stopped surviving and started constructing." Murphy goes deeper in this chapter on the practice we touched on in Chapter 2, blessing the prosperity of other people. He says, and these are deliberate words from a man who was very careful with language, that there is a universal law which states what you sincerely wish for others, you draw toward yourself, not as cosmic reward, as a direct consequence of what that wishing does to your own subconscious programming. When you encounter another person's financial success and feel genuine warmth, not performed happiness, not obligatory positivity, but real warmth, actual "I am glad for you," you reinforce in your own subconscious the reality that success is available, that there is room for everyone's prosperity, that the universe is not a competition with a fixed number of winners. When you encounter another person's success and feel envy, even subtly, even as a barely noticed flicker of tightening, you reinforce the story that wealth belongs to others and not to you. That someone else's gain is, in some fundamental sense, your loss. Murphy calls envy one of the most financially expensive habits a person can maintain, not because the universe punishes it, because of what it does to your own programming, daily and efficiently. It locks you into the psychology of scarcity, and the psychology of scarcity, maintained consistently over time, produces precisely the financial reality it fears. The practice is simple. The next time you encounter someone's success this week, a colleague, a friend, anyone, instead of the reflexive internal comparison, choose a genuine blessing. I rejoice in your prosperity. May it grow. Say it with real intention. Notice what begins to open in your own felt sense of what is possible. Murphy closes chapter 7 with a line that deserves to be read slowly. The rich man blesses his riches and gains more riches. This is not a platitude. This is a precise description of the law of mind in operation. Gratitude and genuine blessing orient the subconscious toward abundance, and the subconscious moves your entire life in the direction it is pointed. In the final chapter, Murphy brings everything together and answers the question that has been quietly building through this entire book. How does all of this inner work actually become tangible, material, spendable wealth in the world? I know the question that has been quietly living in the back of your mind throughout everything we have covered today. It is a fair question. It is a necessary question. And Murphy knows you are asking it, which is why he saves this chapter for last, letting the inner work build across 7 chapters before delivering the answer to the most practical question of all. All of this is coherent. The subconscious mind, the visualization, the gratitude, the scientific prayer, the partnership, the blessing. It fits together into a framework that makes genuine internal sense. But at some concrete, unavoidable point, it has to become a number on a bank statement, a paid-off debt, a funded retirement account, a business generating real revenue, a daily life that looks and feels materially different on the outside. How does the inner work become the outer wealth? Chapter 8 answers that question with more specificity than anywhere else in the book. Murphy begins with what he calls thinking in a certain way, and he is very deliberate about distinguishing this from positive thinking in the general sense. Positive thinking, as it is usually taught, says stay optimistic, maintain a good attitude, believe things will work out. Murphy is not against any of that. But he says plainly that it is not sufficient, and treating it as sufficient is the reason so many sincere, optimistic people fail to produce the material results they want. What produces tangible wealth is directed, disciplined, emotionally charged, specific mental activity aimed at a precisely defined target, not a mood, a practice. Murphy's 3-part process for making inner work produce material results. Part 1. Get specific. The subconscious mind needs a destination it can recognize on arrival, not a direction it can wander in indefinitely. More money is a direction. A specific monthly income figure is a destination. A specific debt cleared by a specific date is a destination. A specific business profitable within a specific time frame is a destination. The more precisely you define where you are going, the more precisely your subconscious can organize your perception, your decisions, and your moment-to-moment attention around moving toward it. Part 2. Imagine the end result, not the process. Murphy is emphatic and specific here, and this is the step that most people get wrong. Do not try to visualize the steps to your goal. Do not try to map the path. Your conscious mind will immediately encounter the obstacles it already knows about, the missing capital, the unclear path, the connections you do not have, and it will begin constructing arguments against the possibility. Bypass that argument entirely by going straight to the destination. Imagine yourself already there. What does your life feel like from inside it? What has changed about the quality of your mornings, your decisions, your sense of security? Hold that image and that feeling every single day with genuine emotional investment for at least 10 minutes. Part 3. Act on every inspired idea without delay. This is the bridge, the step that converts subconscious programming into material action, into material results. Once your subconscious is fully engaged with a specific destination, held in vivid feeling, it will begin delivering ideas. Not the complete plan at once, pieces. A name to contact, a conversation to initiate, a skill worth investing time in, a door you have been walking past without noticing. These ideas arrive quietly, in the shower, on a walk, in the half-awake state of early morning before the critical mind fully activates. When they come, act immediately. The subconscious has delivered the next step. Not acting on it is an instruction to stop delivering. Murphy tells one of the most powerful stories in the entire book here. A man arrived in America after the Second World War with nothing at all. No money, no contacts, no business knowledge, barely enough English to hold a basic conversation. His first year was genuine poverty, disoriented, surviving day to day. His second year, a member of his community introduced him to Murphy's ideas. He had one specific dream, to own a bakery. That was the whole of it. No capital, no location, no knowledge of the food business, no industry contacts. By every external measure from where he stood, the goal was not achievable. But every night, for 4 years, without fail, he spent 10 minutes completely inside that dream. The warmth of a kitchen at 5 in the morning, the specific weight and smell of dough, the sound of his front door being unlocked for the first customers of the day. The feeling, physical, located precisely in his chest, of standing behind a counter that was his. The pride of something built from nothing by his own hands in a country that had begun as a foreign language. Then he acted on every inspired step. He volunteered without pay in a bakery to learn the business from the inside, because that was the step his subconscious placed in front of him. He met his future business partner there, because once he showed up, the subconscious arranged the meeting. He found a small space that needed renovation and negotiated terms he could manage, because his aligned perception now recognized what his unaligned perception had been walking past. He learned every regulation and requirement and supply chain consideration, step by step, each one appearing after the previous one was completed. Murphy closes Chapter 8 with 3 words, just 3. He says every morning, before your day begins, say these words with full meaning and full feeling. Wealth, health, success. Not as a magic incantation, as a conscious daily act of planting seeds in the most fertile soil you will ever have access to. Your own subconscious mind, connected to the infinite supply that has always been available to you. Let those seeds be watered by gratitude. Let them be tended by the practices this book has given you. Trust the process completely. Act on every inspired step that appears. And trust the intelligence within you to do what it has always been fully capable of doing when you finally give it the instructions and the space to work. This is how inner work becomes outer wealth. This is the answer that has been building since Chapter 1. Let us take a full breath and look at the shape of everything we have built today. 8 chapters, dozens of real stories, a complete and internally consistent architecture, from the foundational principle of how the subconscious generates financial reality, through the specific daily practices that change it, all the way to the concrete bridge between inner work and material results in the world. Murphy's central argument, held with consistency and precision across everything he wrote, can be stated in a single sentence. Your financial life is being generated by the content of your subconscious mind, and when you change that content intentionally and consistently, your financial life changes to match. Here is how the 8 chapters build on each other so you can see the complete architecture. Chapter 1 gave us the foundation. The subconscious is actively and continuously generating your reality based on what it genuinely believes. Most of us received our deepest money beliefs before we were old enough to question them. But beliefs are programming, and programming, with consistent, intentional effort, can be changed. Chapter 2 gave us the first essential correction. Resentment of others' wealth is a poverty program hiding inside a justified emotion. Every genuine act of blessing the abundance around you reprograms the subconscious from exclusion to availability. Chapter 3 gave us the most overlooked resource, the knowledge, capability, and creative intelligence already inside you. Going within, 10 minutes of real stillness with a specific question is the most productive practice available before your working day begins. Chapter 4 gave us the partnership. You are not doing this alone. The genius within you shows up in trust and openness, never in grip and willpower. Chapter 5 gave us the technology, scientific prayer, the gold mine within, a precise, repeatable method for charging the subconscious with a desired outcome and releasing it to the deeper intelligence that knows how to bring it about. Chapter 6 gave us the real mechanism of attraction. You attract what you are, not what you want. Affirmations work only when genuine feeling precedes the words. Your environment shapes your subconscious programming, whether you are paying attention or not. Chapter 7 gave us the daily multiplier. Bless what you have. Wish sincerely for others what you want for yourself. These are not soft, optional extras. They are precise, effective acts of daily subconscious reprogramming. Chapter 8 gave us the bridge. Specific destination, vivid daily imagination of the end result, immediate action on every inspired step that appears. Inner work plus outer action, faith plus follow-through, visualization plus movement. That is the complete system, all 8 chapters working together, pointing in the same direction. The through line across all 8 chapters is a single, unbreakable thread. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world, and your inner world can be changed. Not after years of therapy or decades of spiritual practice, now, with daily intention and consistent action. Murphy documented this across hundreds of lives, in dozens of cultures, across every economic starting point imaginable. The mechanism does not discriminate. It does not favor the educated or the connected or the fortunate. It responds to whoever shows up consistently, plants the right seeds, and keeps going. That person can be you. It already is you from the moment you choose to take these principles seriously and practice them without giving up. Let me give you 5 things to begin tonight. Not 5 vague intentions to sit with, not 5 attitudes to adopt gradually. 5 specific, actionable practices drawn directly from the 8 chapters we have just covered. Things you can do in the next 24 hours, starting tonight. The first, every morning, before you pick up your phone, before you open your laptop, before the first notification arrives and the day's noise begins, spend 10 minutes in complete stillness holding a specific, emotionally vivid image of your desired financial outcome. Not the steps to get there, the destination itself. What does your life feel like from inside it after you have arrived? What has changed? Let that feeling become real in your body before it is real in the world. 10 minutes, every morning. This is the foundational practice. Everything else builds on it, and nothing replaces it. The second, identify and name your dominant poverty belief, the single thought about money that sits at the center of your financial struggles. You almost certainly know what it is, even if you have never written it down or said it directly. I am not the kind of person who builds real wealth. Money always runs out before the end of the month. Wealth is for people who started with advantages I never had. Write it down in a single sentence. Then, every time it surfaces, in a thought, in your body before a financial decision, in the moment before a conversation about money, redirect it immediately and without internal argument. There is more than enough, and I am in the flow of infinite supply. Not to deceive yourself, to plant a new seed with consistent, deliberate, daily repetition. The third, choose one person in your life who has more financial success than you do and practice genuinely blessing their prosperity once a day for the next 7 days. Real blessing, not performed positivity, not going through the motions. I am genuinely glad for what you have built. May it continue to grow. 7 days, once daily, with real intention. Notice what begins to shift in your own felt sense of what is possible for you. Most people who try this report noticing a change before the week is out. The fourth, adopt the bill-paying practice beginning with your very next financial obligation. Instead of meeting it with the familiar grimace and the silent narrative of, "There goes more of my money," meet it with a genuine felt sense of gratitude and expectation. I give thanks for the value I have received. My supply is infinite and replenishes itself constantly. Feel that as you complete the payment. Notice over the following weeks how your relationship with money begins to shift from something that drains to something that flows. One more thing, because Murphy makes this point clearly and it matters. These practices compound over time. They do not work like a light switch, instant, complete, fully lit from day one. They work like a garden. The first week, nothing is visible above ground. The second week, still nothing. But underneath, the soil is being prepared. The roots are forming. The invisible work is happening. And then something appears, and it grows faster than you anticipated because the foundation was already solid when you could not see it. The only difference Murphy could identify across hundreds of documented cases over decades of work between the people who transformed their financial lives and the people who stayed exactly where they were is that the people who transformed kept going past the point where most people stop. Keep going. I want to say something before we finish. Something I hope lands somewhere real. There is a version of your life, not in some distant future, not contingent on a break you have not yet received, not requiring circumstances to align in a way they never have before, that is simply on the other side of the beliefs you are currently holding about yourself and money. A version where you wake up without that familiar weight, where you look at your financial situation and feel something other than anxiety, where you make decisions from genuine, grounded confidence rather than managed fear, where you give generously, live fully, and move through the world with the quiet inner steadiness of someone who knows, not hopes, not wishes, knows that they are taken care of. That version of your life is not waiting on the economy. It is not waiting on a lucky break, on the right connection, on the timing to finally be favorable. It is not waiting on someone important to notice your potential or your circumstances to improve enough to justify beginning. It is waiting on the daily, consistent, unglamorous, extraordinarily powerful work of reprogramming your own mind to match the life you are genuinely capable of living. That work is not reserved for people with special advantages or spiritual gifts or exceptional willpower. It is available to anyone willing to practice it. It has been done by people starting from circumstances far more difficult than the vast majority of us face, and it can be done by you, starting from exactly where you are right now. Murphy spent 30 years making one case. One. The power to transform your financial life is already inside you. It has always been inside you. It is the same intelligence that runs your heartbeat without conscious instruction, that heals a wound while you sleep, that performs millions of perfectly coordinated biological operations every single day without your awareness or effort. That power, intelligent, responsive, creative, genuinely without ceiling, is available for your financial life with exactly the same reliability and the same unconditional generosity. All it requires is that you learn its language and speak it with consistency and intention. The language of feeling, the language of vivid, specific, emotionally real inner experience held daily. The language of genuine gratitude for what is already present and genuine expectation of what is already moving toward you. The language of blessing rather than resentment, of trust rather than grip, of the quiet certainty that sits beneath all the noise and all the reasonable objections your mind will offer. Your abundance is not a hope. It is a certainty waiting to manifest. The treasure house of infinity is not a metaphor. It is a practical description of what you have access to right now, in this moment, as a human being with a subconscious mind connected to the same intelligence that built everything you can see. The question has never been whether that power is available to you. It always has been. It always will be. The only question is whether you are willing to turn toward it. Open the door. Begin tonight. Trust the intelligence within you. It has been waiting patiently and without judgment for your instructions. If something in this video shifted for you, even one idea, even one moment of genuine recognition, even a small, quiet opening of, maybe this is what I have been missing, please take 1 second right now and hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach the people who need these ideas most, and it tells me that the time we spent together here was worth it. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper with books like this one. Every week on this channel, we go inside books that do not just make you feel inspired for an hour, but actually change the fundamental way you see yourself and what is possible for you. The next one is already in progress, and I think you will want to be here for it. Leave a comment and tell me which chapter hit you hardest today. Which story stayed with you? Which of the 5 practices you are beginning tonight? I read every single comment, and your responses genuinely shape where this channel goes next. There are links in the description to companion books that pair beautifully with Murphy's work. Titles that approach the same fundamental truths from different angles, with different stories, different practices, different entry points for different kinds of minds. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to invest this hour and a half in the most important asset you will ever own. Your mind is the asset. You just worked on it. Take good care of yourself. I will see you in the next one.